Alright guys, HECZ again today. Hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. HECZ revealing a truly remarkable story about the way that the CDL could have gone over the last few years. When the CDL first came around, everything was in complete chaos in terms of who was getting the organisations, and HECZ and his history and COD were massively disrespected by the owners of the league. Eventually HECZ did manage to get a spot, and Scump, former among others, moved over to the Chicago Huntsmen at the time. But had that not happened, HECZ had a dramatically different plan for what would have happened to effectively run his own CDL on some level and take over the league in some regard. Would Scump have agreed to this idea if it had gone through, given the money that was potentially on the line for some players at the time? Very much interested in your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I greatly appreciate it. First of all, we've got to talk about the anti-cheat and the problem in the game. Attaches basically resigned to the fact that it's never gonna actually work in this game. I don't think we'll ever have a working anti-cheat, maybe in 20 years time, but obviously then the cheats will have advanced further. So yeah, nobody's got any faith in Call of Duty to actually fix these problems, and they are once again creeping into the discussion in challenges, in big tournaments. Of course, we know the Jimbo drama. Look, at the end of the day, it's a massive problem for competitive COD and just for Call of Duty in general, that if you want to play ranked, you're going to run into cheaters if you're at a decent rank an awful lot of the time. However, it doesn't necessarily affect the Pro League or affect challenges. It does indirectly, because who's going to grind COD, who's going to get good at COD, who's going to be the next generation players if the experience is awful? Well, the answer is not very many people, as we have seen with the amount of, the fewer number of rookies, I guess, coming into the league over the last few years than the players there used to be a few years ago. But theoretically, if you expect the players in challenges and in the Pro League to be legit and not have any cheating software downloaded, it shouldn't affect the competitive scene we currently have all that much. It obviously is causing problems though for the future. However, again, as with the Jimbo situation, there are questions creeping back in. There was a clip here on the Hacienda. Now, I don't think there's anything in this, but this guy Clousey jumps up top, and as he comes around the corner, he, seems to recognize there's something in. Now, to be fair, the way that he reacts to this, immediately I thought, it could have been a name tag on Bantsy Castle, could have been, actually it wasn't even, maybe it was Bants, I mean it looked like it was Bants, didn't it? But Henry came up in the kill feed. A little bit confused about the codcaster here, probably just a codcaster glitch to be fair, but anyway. He seemed to see him, or we know that sometimes there's a glitch where, like, his, character model will glitch through the wall or something. Now, it turns out it's more than likely this that happens, where, in this particular spot on Hacienda, often you'll get a name tag, something like this. So, yeah, I don't think that guy's necessarily cheating. However, this was highly controversial last night. This guy, Maestro, who was playing as well, had this spotted on his stream when he was streaming. And we can see at the top of the screen it says, press Alt plus R to toggle the engine owning.su menu. So engine owning, I believe, like one of these big cheap manufacturers. And, at the top of his screen, it seems like he had basically a message to say he could toggle it on. So everyone was like, oh my god, this guy must be hacking. Now, he responded and said, no, you just got baited, right? So he put this out, which appears to show him on his OBS with, the same thing, press Alt-R to toggle the engine owning.su menu. And it seems like what he's suggesting is that he has written this himself and that he's put it up there and has, basically tried to bait the community. Now, first of all, why would you even do this? Like, what is the benefit on paper to pretending that you're hacking? I don't know. I don't understand exactly what goes through some people's brains. Or do you guys even buy this? That is the other question, because people are saying, maybe understandably, that the font on this is not the same font. And we'll see an example of that in a second. So, this guy says, everyone just got baited. Like, oh yeah, just definitely baiting all this stuff. And then he deleted the VOD. So this is the point, isn't it, right? Like, okay, what do you guys think on this? Is the guy baiting and, he planned this all along just for a bit of a laugh in the community, and obviously it's not maybe worked out in his favor? Or is this legit? Does he have the engine owning installed, and then afterwards, to cover his tracks, he came up with this video despite deleting all the VODs anyway? So, Allegedly, it was just an OBS layer, just to bait people, and then refused to do any PC checks either, which always sounds good. And then there was, of course, talk about this. So the menu, as it was written there on the OBS page, was a different font, it seems, to what we actually saw on the stream. Now, I will say that often when you stream, due to bitrate and other things like that, the fonts can look different. But this M is dramatically different, because people are saying, oh no, well, just the bottom of the M isn't kind of, rendering because of the stream. But even if you look at the angles, look at this M here, how I can't believe we're analyzing this, but you know what I'm saying, right? The middle part of the M is like halfway up the height of the M, whereas on this font that he used to show his layer, it comes all the way down to the bottom. So even if you want to argue that bit wasn't rendering in properly, the angle of the V within the M is surely different between both of them. I don't know. And obviously people are looking at the spacing between the lettering as well and saying that it's a different font. And I'm kind of inclined to agree, actually. So I think my opinion will be that, he got caught and he's using it was just a prank defense. I'm not sure I buy that based on the evidence. But even if it is bait, he's got to be a moron or something to even try and pull this off. But it dreams of your thoughts in the comment section below. Is that guy cheating or not? Not a good look either way, to be perfectly honest. But let's talk about the OpTic Dynasty and what could have been with their history as an organization. Kremp, by the way, apparently it's next week we are going to get the update on what he's going to be doing next. Of course, he competed in the Porsche North American Sprint Challenge last year and just dominated it, won basically everything, won the championship by a mile. This year he wants to take the next level, he wants to compete in a more competitive series, and I imagine relatively soon we're going to get the answers to that one. But HECZ was doing a podcast yesterday with Apex, kind of talking about some classic stories in competitive Call of Duty and elsewhere. FaZe Apex, of course, this is as well, sat down with him, had a long conversation on a lot of things, OpTic and FaZe, and the connection between everything. Now, looking back at a very interesting time in competitive Call of Duty history when the CDL franchised famously back in 2019 for the 2020 season. At the time, HECZ was, and OpTic were, the biggest names in esports, but the CDL came in, Bobby Kotick and his boys, and the intention was to sell these spots for $25 million, can you believe it, to all of Bobby Kotick's sports friends, which of course was terrible value, but that was the intention of the league, was to form effectively a North American sports league where all the owners would also own other teams. So HECZ, despite everything that he did for the esports and OpTic had done for the esports, they were kind of cast out, and it was like, oh well, unlucky guys, you built the thing, but now we're going to capitalize on that success. So HECZ was very close to not getting a spot at all, because obviously the OpTic sale had happened to Infinite Esports. He was kind of getting out of there. They were getting a spot with Immortals in the end as OpTic Gaming Los Angeles, but HECZ and therefore Scump and Formal and the OpTic family, they were pretty much cast out at the time, and he had to work very hard to actually get a spot in the end, and it nearly didn't happen at all. This is why Dashy signed for OGLA, because he believed that OpTic either weren't getting a spot or it was going to end up being with OGLA or something like that anyway. In the end, HECZ did get a spot with NRG, partnered with Andy Miller and made the Chicago Huntsmen. That became OpTic Chicago, and then, there was some drama there. They broke apart. The rest is history. But had HECZ not got that spot, it's not like he wasn't going to be involved in competitive Call of Duty. That's his lifeblood, and he knows the most about it, much more than the actual owners of the league teams did. So HECZ had a plan.
And if I hadn't found the partnership with Andy to start Chicago Huntsmen, then what I would have done is I would have paid Kremp and whoever was on my team at the time, Scump included, to play in Challengers. And we weren't going to be a part of the big league. And we were going to be in Challengers. And we were going to do the same that we do every single day, which is create compelling content for people to follow. And my goal was to make Challengers more popular than the big league.
So what do you guys think about this hypothetical timeline where Chicago Huntsmen never exists And, well, I guess NRG would get the spot, but it wouldn't be with OpTic. It wouldn't be, okay, Chicago Huntsman wasn't OpTic, but it was effectively OpTic for that year or so until OGLA ceased to exist. The Los Angeles Thieves got that spot. OpTic got the branding back, and then, they eventually broke apart, formed up with Envy, Dallas Empire, OpTic Texas, all that stuff that eventually happened there over the last couple of years. Now, what team would it have been, first of all? Because presumably Envoy and Gunless and Arcetes and those guys who are also on this roster would have, gone somewhere else to a Pro League team, and the team that would have followed Hex down to his Challengers program would presumably have just been the core members of OpTic themselves. So we're talking Scump, we're talking Formal, etc., etc. The question, of course, that I have is, would they have gone along with this, especially in the circumstances? Because that was the year, and maybe the year after, but certainly that year, the money was flooding in big time. This was like just towards the end of the real VC-backed period. You had guys like HECZ getting paid, what, 400 grand a year on the Los Angeles Guerrillas to do nothing, played terrible, and get himself benched and still pocket the cash. Like, this was the era we were living in. So, look, maybe Hex would have had the VC money to pay Scump and Formal and those guys what they would have got paid anyway in the Pro League. But obviously, if you're Scump, and we know how Scump is in terms of money and stuff like this. Like, the guy, if he's offered a good amount of cash, he's going to try and want to take it. That's, how Scump tends to operate. If Hex wouldn't be able to match some of the offers that Scump would be getting, like, would Scump actually have done what Dashy thought he might and, go to OGLA or whatever, right? Like, if OpTic didn't get the spot, okay, if Hex didn't get the spot with Chicago Huntsman in the end, would Scump have ended up going to, the Dallas Empire? Would he have gone to OGLA? What about Formal, right? Like, would Scump have turned around to Hex and said, look, I like the plan. The idea is to, compete in challenges, overshadow the league on some level, and, build up effectively like a CDL. I mean, okay, it's within the CDL program, but effectively competing with the CDL main product and showing why we are more important. And showing why we are more important and effective than the main CDL side. But equally, would this idea have worked? Because if Scump was getting offered 500-600 grand to go and play a year for a certain team, especially because Scump, had already achieved everything in his career at that point, was still an excellent player, but was obviously thinking about, he wasn't necessarily thinking so much about legacy maybe as he was before he won his world championship, for example, and got that all locked in. Would it have been an argument? Because for me, the idea that Crim6 would have, gone to play challenges as opposed to taking the offer on Dallas Empire or elsewhere that he eventually did for an awful lot of money, I don't know how easy that conversation would have been. The reality is it didn't matter in the end because they got the job done. Hex put the NRG hoodie on. They joined Chicago Huntsman. The rest is history. But had that not happened, what would have occurred? Because even recently, Scump was on stream, and of course he was joking to some degree. But he was asked the question, how much to play for Falcons this year? And he says, yeah, give me 3+ million. I'm straight in there. Obviously, a few years ago, would he have been willing to turn down the money available in the CDL with some of these big VCs to play challenges? Maybe it would have been possible, as I say, if Hex had himself big backing from some VCs to compete on the challenger side, and therefore he could still pay competitive salaries to those guys. It would have been a wild time to see these guys, and I wonder what would have happened, right? Would it have saved the league? Would it have killed the league? I think you can certainly conclude that challengers might be given more respect today if this had been the case back then, because certainly challengers would have had more interest and support a few years ago, and that may have carried through to the present day as well. But look, the reality is we're never really going to know. So very much interested in your thoughts on all of this stuff in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.